Welcome back. On today's episode, I'm joined by Mandy Ristic, a multi-brand franchisee, operator of over 70 plus locations across different brands, and the force behind one of Dunkin's largest and fastest growing networks in the Midwest. Mandy shares her journey from scooping ice cream at Baskin Robbins to becoming the developer of the year most recently. And we get a chance to kind of dive deeper into her philosophy around building teams, unlocking growth through acquisition, and how she's paying it forward by creating new franchise owners from within her own ranks. So I hope you enjoy. Mandy, how's it going? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be
Super
here.
excited. I'm happy for you to join me. We've been talking for a little bit now, and I see you all over LinkedIn. I think that's where I first met you. You've been popping off, opening stores, getting awards, just doing your thing. Tell our audience a little bit more about yourself. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh boy. Well, I guess I am a little LinkedIn famous, but no, I'm actually, I don't think I'm only LinkedIn famous in our industry. I feel like, a little bit, but basically I have a very interesting story. I started at our local Baskin Robbins in Royal Oak, Michigan. So a little shout out to that hometown. I grew up in Royal Oak, and I was 16, got a job. I met my future husband. He was 18. His family owned the place and it was love at first sight. And we ended up getting married and all that fun stuff. But before we got married, we bought it in the year 2000 from his family. So that was really my first taste of like franchise ownership. And what's so interesting when you look back on that journey, we didn't really know a whole lot of what we were doing. I'm not going to lie. But
it's always the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think that what I did learn was that work ethic, like that hard, like we have to open the store, we have to sell all this ice cream and we have to pay our bills. But I really think that was the age where I really learned like franchising, and I really like franchising. And I really wasn't one to think I'm going to start my own business or I'm going to do my own ice cream or any of those things. I think I fell in love with the franchise model at a very early age without really knowing that I did. And then if you want to fast forward the whole entire story, we owned the ice cream store for a very long time. I had my my third child in 2012. I just needed some extra money. I went to a local Dunkin that was also a combo location. And I just said, hey, can I make some cakes for you? Because I just wanted a second job. And that just quickly evolved into I became their restaurant manager. So that was in 2012, became a restaurant manager of a small network then. And I learned everything from being a barista, making sandwiches. I mean, I went from like a 10-store employee Baskin Robbins single model to, oh my gosh, there's 25 employees here, drive through 24-hour location. And I was scared out of my mind. It was crazy. And then, there's a longer story to all that. But in 2015, I met the current franchisees I work for now, and they were coming to the market. They're from Chicago, two brothers, and they grew up in the Dunkin model as well. And they were investing in Michigan. And Michigan has a really cool, fun story. We were outnumbered by Tim Hortons, and there was a lot going on in the Detroit market. And they had 2 restaurants, and they were buying 6 more. And they got introduced to me by Dunkin, and I met with them. And it was during that meeting that when I met one of the brothers, and I said, listen, I'm, really interested in becoming a Dunkin owner one day. When the time comes, maybe I could be a minority partner, and maybe you can give me an opportunity. I don't know me yet. We have to learn each other. We have to do it. So that's kind of how that really started, and we shook on it, and that was in 2015. And I got my first store where I became a partner, and that was in 2019. My first one was a Dunkin here in Allen Park, Michigan. So, but we grew our network from 2, and I think because we just won an award, I think we're at about 80 restaurants. Dunkins, just Dunkins.
Wow.
So, but in the Michigan
it's
market,
amazing.
Yeah, we're in the Michigan market. We're like 40 plus. We've grown just in the Michigan market.
It's like exponential growth.
Yeah.
Such exponential growth. I always find it so fascinating talking to operators and hearing about those first decade, right? When they had maybe 1 or 2 stores, they took it very slowly. Those are the kind of the formative years where you're learning the ropes, if you might say. And then you start to see like there's like exponential growth. What was it for you guys? I do want to go back and learn more about where you started, but now you're opening up, almost feels like stores every single week. How did that exponential growth come to be?
Well, what I learned, and I learned this from the brothers and from the business partners, and now we're kind of using that same tactic with the other brands. But
Mm.
we acquired stores, or you buy stores. If anyone that's looking to get into any type of brand and they want to grow fast, that's the easiest way, and that's really was
Right.
their business tactic, but was also necessary in this particular market that we're in. These stores needed to be
Mhm.
sold, they needed to be bought, and they needed
Right.
to revamp in order to change that brand. Instead of closing down a restaurant, it was better to acquire one. That was really how that growth first initially happened. Is it was a bunch of acquisitions, like one after another, and we weren't just acquiring like whole networks. We were acquiring single store
Individual. Yeah.
individuals. There's a lot to do with that because you're replacing like a whole family. Now the family sold it and they're not working there anymore. So it was a lot of hard work back then because
Mm.
it wasn't like I had a full team of like 25 people to now take over this restaurant. That's really now our quickest strategy. Like we were started taking over two, three, four, five, and then all of a sudden it was like 10 stores a year, like in the
Mm.
early days. And then we started to build. When we started to build, that's I didn't build our first store till 2017. So it was like 2 years. So we were just acquiring. And then the first build was 2017, and it was my first one. And I'm actually sitting in it right now. It's our main office. But that first one was so scary. So
I can see
scary.
it's. I can see it's glamorous. Yeah, I can see you've had a hand
I was so
in building
scared. I
that.
was like, my team talks about it now. They were like, do you remember when you were like side by side and you're opening and you're closing and you're making us so stressed? Cause I really put every thought into like this tile and this grout and this ceiling tile. And as things
Mhm.
progress, you kind of let some of that go a little bit. Not that my standards don't change, but I'm not picking, grout tile anymore and stuff like that. We were
It
doing that.
becomes it becomes a routine, right? There's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
blueprint.
Now,
You just
yeah.
follow it, and
I just
it's
took
amazing.
it, not that I don't take it seriously now, but it was my first one, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. So yeah, so that
Very,
was really the growth pattern of the Dunkin' world, and that really doesn't go away. Like that's how you entertain even other markets. Like we wanted to get into Cleveland market, and it was really by acquisition. So an acquisition for anyone that ever really wants to learn from me is the easiest way to get into a franchise model is to acquire a store. Buy it first, and
right.
you can really learn it and then build. That was our footprint.
Well, let me double tap on that. So the other day, I was speaking with, I would consider them like a new type of operator platform where they take private equity money, or they raise a lot of money and then they go in and try to acquire brands. But
Okay.
they've been having a difficulty in actually getting into the brand, because some brands are very strict on who they let in.
First,
And so
yes.
their strategy is, before they can actually go acquire brands, they actually need to open up one themselves, prove it out within the network, and then they're able to, begin acquiring them. So what would you recommend? Because I know you've been looking at other concepts as well. You've
Right.
opened up a couple new ones these past couple of years. What is kind of your criteria when you're starting to look at a
It's not my
different brand?
criteria. All the brands, it's funny that you even bring that up. So I get asked the most is obviously everybody wants to get into Dunkin'. So I think obviously Dunkin' out of all of our brands is the most iconic. It's the biggest. It's the one everybody really
Yeah.
wants a piece of the pie. And it is really true that, Dunkin' and Inspire as a whole is going to look at your almost like your application or your platform and be picky
Absolutely.
about who is going to come in and, represent that brand. And it's almost like you might have money for it, but they want to make sure, can you run this?
Yeah,
And it's really the
exactly.
same across all the brands in a way. But I know it sounds so hard to start, but there are brands out there, I am sure, that you can start without having that resume or that portfolio. But in the
Mhm.
Dunkin' space, like I said, the brothers, they already came from it and they were second gen at that time. So that was an
Right.
easy transformation for them to do that. And then you have to have a strong operator. So that's kind of where I kind of came into play. So as you're growing and you're trying to build or you're trying to acquire, every brand's going to want to know, well, who's actually going to operate the store? What does that person look like? What is maybe their equity in this game? Because, they're not going to give you 20 stores if they're like, who's going to be running this? And,
Right.
I was just building just from the Dunkin' portfolio is how all the other brands kind of came to be. And, so on and so on. But it was obviously the track record of starting with the first brand. Like I said, I think the easiest way is to visit, use things like I'm an advocate of the IFA, the International Franchise
Right.
Association. That's always a great start, or using your local sources, or just meeting people, like you said, on LinkedIn to say, hey, how did you get started? There's a lot of franchises out there, even in the food space, that will take someone that maybe doesn't have that food background. But every brand, no matter what franchise you're trying to get into, like I could go and say, I want to sell tires, and they might say, well, what tire experience do you have? So I mean, it should be something that someone's passionate about and has some knowledge. Usually you hear someone's like, well, I worked in my, parents' restaurant for 20 years. That might be a good candidate for that, a certain
Mm.
franchise, because then the franchisor might understand, well, they did run a restaurant, and they understand food safety, and so on and
Right.
so forth.
Mandy, last time we talked, you were mentioning to me that, to your point, having that operator experience has really helped you succeed in all the different brands that you've been in, especially with the employees. I remember our last conversation, you said that the fact that you're able to roll up your sleeves and actually you've been there on the front line, you've worked the drive-through, you've worked the cash register, you've prepared the food, has given you a lot of credibility with your expansion goals. So I'm curious, when you come in and you buy out a Dunkin franchisee that's looking to retire, and you're coming in, you're trying to integrate that location or that portfolio of locations into your business. What is that experience like? How do the employees react, and how do you kind of integrate it successfully?
So it didn't happen overnight, but you have to acquire a couple stores and kind of go through those road bumps and go, okay, now there's a playbook for this. I can tell you every
Right.
single restaurant that I've ever acquired. And I can even tell you last year I acquired 2 Smoothie Kings at the same time, because we bought into Smoothie King, but they're all different. There's no roadmap for it, and it's not the same. But really, I think it depends. You have to approach the restaurant and walk in, and really, I lead with, listen, I don't have 25 people in the parking lot. I cannot replace this
Mhm.
whole entire store. So I need you. I don't know your restaurant. You guys, these are your guests. This is your customer. This is your everyday life. And we really need you to help us be successful. And hey, I can offer you this. I can offer you growth. Like we do have, we can offer a little bit more things because we are bigger now, that I think is appealing, and they like to see, like, oh, maybe I do want now, maybe I can be a district manager, or maybe now I can move into like a training role, when we come to acquire that we have these systems, and we have maybe they look like we have some fun, and they see like, oh yeah, I started with them at this store, I started at this location, and I'm still here. I think it gives them a sense of like, okay, I'm not just getting replaced and we're still here. It's always you kind of have to tread easily, because you even hear
That's a
things
good
from
point.
previous owners might say, oh, you're getting Sally, and Sally's a big pain. You're going to want to get rid of Sally right away. And I've learned I don't judge even when someone tells me that, because I might like Sally. Sally might be
Yeah,
fantastic. So
exactly.
you're in a day and age where it's very rare that you can replace anybody, right? I mean, you're buying a restaurant based on those sales and what they're doing, and you need all of them. So we just have to go in with a very careful approach. And yeah, you're going to lose a couple, here and there, but for the most
Yeah.
part, it's just how we act and how you talk and how you treat everybody with respect. And I was just talking with my director in a regional right before this, because I was like, hey, I need some tips for this podcast. No, anyways, they don't. But one thing that they were bringing up is, we actually have a
Mm.
regional manager that works for me right now. So a regional manager is someone that sees over like multiple brands and locations, and it's like a region. So she's overseeing the state of Michigan. We acquired her store, and it was she was a crew member for 14 years, like a crew member
Wow.
in the register. And English is not her first language, and she was not born here. And I met her, and I thought, you're going to be the restaurant manager, and also you're going to run like 2 restaurants. And she looked at me
Yeah.
like I don't think so. And at the time, she didn't even drive a car on a freeway. Like we talk about this all the time.
Wow.
But to think about how far she has
Yeah.
come, and under our leadership and under our growth, and giving her all of those, I guess, tools and like confidence, like they were talking about it earlier, saying, I walked in and thought, why are you just a crew member? Like, what are you talking about? You're this fantastic individual. You're
Yeah.
so smart. You're helping me. Like she helped me
Mhm.
overtake the store. And she actually cried, and she'll tell you that story, but she was so scared of me. She was like, oh my God, she's going to fire me. She's going to do all these things. And I was like, what are you talking about? I need you. And I remember I asked her to take over this other, or I didn't even tell her. I knew how she would react. So we acquired another restaurant that I knew she was familiar with from the community. And I said, come help me
Okay.
with acquisition, come help me. And it was a drive-through location, and her store did not have a drive-through. So here you're talking about someone like me who 14 years you're working with
Learning for the first time.
yeah, yeah. So we're walking around and she's helping me do like inventory and talk with some of the employees. And I said, so what do you think of this restaurant? And she's like, it needs a lot of work. And yeah, we have a lot to do. And I'm like, well, it's yours. I just wanted to tell you we're giving it to you. You're going to become a true star. She said, no, I'm not taking this. And I said, oh, no, you are. And that was just kind of how I just said, no, you're capable of doing it. I don't need you in one restaurant. And that's just kind of how the story went. And now when I look back,
Right.
so that was in I think we took over their store in the beginning of 2017. And now we're from 2025. I think she's running like the whole state of Michigan. She oversees Dunkin, Baskin, and we just gave her our third brand.
It's
And
incredible.
she drives on a freeway now and all these other things. She's fantastic.
It's never too late to learn how to drive on the freeway. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You have this awesome concept called the difference maker with how you yeah, or at least I heard it on your episode with the IFA. You were talking about how you approach employee engagement, employee recognition, right?
We have to.
Tell me a little bit more on how do you keep your employees engaged and motivated and excited?
I never think I have any type of recipe or I think I have it figured out. We came up with the difference maker. I'm not even sure. I think it was last year at some point because the employee of the month just wasn't working. Like we would try it. We would do the employee of the month. I feel like some stores would do it, then some weren't. I'd be asking because we try to have like consistency around it, like make sure every single restaurant has an employee of the month, and it was just not going anywhere. So when things like that happen in my life or in our role or whatever I'm doing, I go back to the root cause of like, why is this not working or why can't we be consistent? And I don't know how it even came about, but I think it just randomly came in my head. Like, I think we need to change it and call it the Difference Maker Award. And we do have like a whole thing around it where it's a little definition of basically outlining that this person, it doesn't have to be, it could be anybody in the restaurant, makes a difference in our community and in our guests and in our company, and you really go out of your way to make a difference for everybody. And it just changed the whole entire game. And you can just see like their face kind of light up a little bit more, like, oh, I make a difference. Like just by telling someone like you make a difference every single day and now your leaders are recognizing you, it just really went far, and it's kind of sticks now. And actually one of my district managers, it's something we do here at Home Group. Every district manager in our company kind of plays a little role in something. So we have one of our district managers is in charge of the Difference Maker Award, and that helps us too. So he's so on top of it and he's really engaged in it, and that helps too. So he makes sure that every single restaurant is nominating someone, is tracking it for us, because at the end of the year, we want to make sure we recognize the final, difference maker or somebody that maybe went above and beyond in their restaurant. And sometimes we come together, like if I'm in a restaurant and see something or you hear something really outstanding happening, I might reach out and say, can you make sure that we put this name down? Like we all kind of do that, and it sticks. I mean, I just think it's sometimes we have to recreate some of the old tools and make them, like you said, like in your podcast, a little bit more modern just by changing the name of it. And I mean, I just felt like it was not going anywhere. Like it's just employee of the month. It just sounds so like
very stale and old. And
really when we changed it and be like, you make a difference in my restaurant. You made a difference with this guest. You made a difference with this manager, whatever it is. I think it's very important, and it changed how I think people feel recognized and feel valued, and they do feel like they make a difference. I mean, I wasn't trying to do anything, just trying to make something consistent and make people happy. And I do like to show everybody like, you make a difference. We tried very hard in 2024, made a huge campaign in Home Group about like the we appreciate you campaign, and it's still going on. It's not like it went away, because I think in the QSR industry and where we're at, I run in little tougher cities like Detroit and Cleveland, and you're in the Dunkin space, or like we have Qdoba, you have these rough spaces where you see a lot of guests, and you kind of had to turn around the mentality of like, you have to appreciate your guests. And, and it wasn't just appreciating your guests. It was also, hey, this manager, you need to appreciate your employees, and it was really this whole "we appreciate you" campaign that we had to trickle down, and we all have to kind of live it, breathe it, walk in and appreciate every single person. And I would have multiple calls where I make all the company get on them to say, hey, I appreciate you, but you guys have to turn this around and make sure that you're engaging all of these crew members and everybody underneath you, that they need to appreciate everyone walking in the door. These are tough times. Money, people don't like to spend money as freely anymore, and nothing upsets any guest as like, hey, maybe I saved up a little bit today because I want to have this extra item, and then they're treated like crap in our drive-through. So I think when we started the "We Appreciate You" campaign, that's when we decided to change and made that, make a difference award kind of simultaneously, because it kind of went hand in hand, and we also empower our teams to, and I'll start with it sometimes in the morning, like, don't forget to appreciate your guests today. We call like surprise and delight is like a big thing. If you make a mistake on a drink, or if something just isn't right, sample it. We're very open about, and you will never believe how you can turn around someone's day in any situation. If you're like, hey, you want to try this smoothie, or hey, try this new donut, it changes like the whole game and the culture of the company. And with our guests, we
I love
that
that.
kind of all went hand in hand, I guess, in this weird way. But it's kind of
I like that. That's a gold nugget there. You turn a mistake into an opportunity
always,
to
yeah,
delight the customer.
yes. We always say surprise and delight. That's my thing.
Yeah.
And then, we love to give little shout outs. Like, we have chats. I have them all, tons of chats. But like I always say, show me how you surprised and delighted a guest today. It just goes far. And I think hopefully we're doing something right. We still get guest complaints, but it's not our goal.
Yeah, that's just the nature. That's the nature of the QSR business, right? It's a tough one, but it does seem like you're doing a lot of things right,
I
especially
hope
with
so.
your most recent post, the Development of the Year award. What was that all about, and how'd you guys get that, and what does that award signify?
I am kind of like, obviously, if people follow me at all, obviously I started in the Baskin Robbins space, but I'm such a huge like Dunkin fan, and I'm hardcore into Dunkin. And I mean, I love all my brands, don't get me wrong, but Dunkin's the most iconic, and we have the most units. And early on in my career of 13 years of doing Dunkin', I've always wanted to be like, oh, I want to win that award, or I want to be on this committee, or I want to represent Michigan in this spotlight. And I think I could do something like that one day. And it's not that they're super elite, but it's kind of this elite little Dunkin' world. So to be surprised that we won Dunkin' Developer of the Year, I was all super geeked about it, because we worked hard. This Detroit market has such a wild story, and just, it was a lot of work, and it's a lot of money, and it was a lot of time, and to grow the number of units that we have grown. And not only just the growth of the new units, we've remodeled a lot. So just in 2024, we remodeled 15 locations. It's our commitment to the brand. And I myself, along with the team, but I represent Dunkin' on other platforms, not because I wanted the recognition, but because I believe in the brand. And I think it kind of showed our commitment to the company and the brand. And then to help, like you said, like, I'm sitting on a regional committee or a marketing committee, not because for any reason that I want to make us successful, but the rest of the market too. And so winning Developer of the Year is great. And now I'm looking to maybe next couple of years we can get something like Operator of the Year or Franchisee of the Year. It'd be nice. But
I think manifest it.
I think they said there was over 1,000 national franchisees. So it was kind of cool that we were the one this year. So I'll take it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you recommend for an upcoming operator franchisee to get involved with, these like regional boards, technology boards, different groups within the franchisee network? Is that something that you think would help them stand out?
And like I said, here's what I believe in. It's a pet peeve of mine is when, and we all know, and you probably know, there's operators out there that own franchises, or whether it's a franchise or not, and they don't really put in the work, right? And they're the first person that is like, oh, my sales are down, or woe is me, and
Right.
how can I be better, and all. And I feel like just you have to roll up your sleeves and do some work. No, it's a commitment. I think it's actually I spend a lot of time doing it. It's not, you don't get paid for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you want to, if you really believe in your brand and you want to grow the business, and what I think is most important about being on any subcommittee or any, whatever it is, because almost every franchise model has one, is the ability to not only kind of connect and kind of figure out and align with that brand, to kind of figure out like, well, where do they see the growth or what is their plan, but to
Right.
connect with other franchisees. Sometimes that's more valuable than anything else,
That's a good
because
point. That's a
I
good
I
point.
think I've gained so much insight, and I'm always meeting someone new constantly all the time. And it's like I really want to pick your brain for a second, because they're there for the same reason, and they're successful in their own world, in their own way. And I've learned from every single person I meet, and I love spending time with other franchisees. It's just like my husband says, when we go to MUFC, it's like my Super Bowl. It like literally is like, okay, get ready. I
I
get
love that
hyped.
show.
Like, like I'm like, this is my Super Bowl. I want to meet all my, fellow operators and talk and network. And I just feel like you walk away with just so much more knowledge. So yeah, if you're up and coming and you want to be involved, that's the best way to start. There's no better point than to really learn that business by getting involved, just like any
Mhm.
other item. And I can't even tell you how much that's helped me in my personal growth. And I still feel like the newbie, believe it or not, like in Dunkin'. I'm kind of like, I'm still new here. I don't know how this works, but let's learn. And you actually have something to bring to the table. And then you also help your fellow franchisees. Like they know that they can come to you, and you should have that open door. It shouldn't be a competition. I don't work that way. I don't sit there and think if so and so has a store down the street from me. No, we kind of have to align and work together, because that's how brands work. You can't be against each other. And I think over the years, I've created a pretty tight knit community with our Michigan group, and we're all pretty close. We're all pretty open. We text, we have groups, and I didn't come overnight, but that
Yeah.
constant
It never
dedication.
does.
But that's what helps build a market. That's what helps build a brand, is by connecting with all of them.
Exactly.
So no, go for it. Get on those committees. Do it.
Yeah, for sure. You're also at the stage now where you're having your success, right? You're scaling like crazy. And then you also mentioned that you've been putting in a lot of effort to give back, not only with your employees, but also with women in restaurant leadership positions,
Yeah.
women that are opening their own franchises. So
Yes.
what have you been doing these days to connect with this community that, judging from our last few conversations, it seems like you feel like this community needs the most support, right?
I come
And
to
encouragement.
realize I didn't understand that I actually was doing anything special, but I think now what I realize that is one of the biggest things is I feel now I have a responsibility. It's not just about women, it's about all of the like you said,
Like
underrepresented groups that we
groups.
have that work for us, or that are in our company or anywhere. I feel like when it comes to like women and developing, I don't have the secret formula, but I have learned that now I think that I have a responsibility to talk more openly about what maybe I have struggled with, how I overcame that, and how I can help others, because I'm learning that some people look to me as a role model, and it's kind of like a big role in a way, because I'm like, well, I'm your role model. So last year, when it became a little bit more apparent that I was getting reached out and messaged and, hey, I think you should do this, and hey, you should get involved in this, I was like, wow, I think I have now this responsibility. Not only do I have two daughters that I'm raising, so that's the first thing that comes to your mind is like, well, I need to set a strong example for my daughters. But B, it's also the employees that you have, your leadership team. And now other people are now reaching out and saying, hey, how do I get to where you're getting? I think the biggest thing that I have done was now I'm telling my story. So that's maybe I was a little shy about it before, or maybe I didn't think it wasn't important to talk about. But I learned this early at the IFA, was just tell your story. There's no wrong answer to it. It's just tell your story. So I didn't understand that telling your story is kind of powerful, that someone resonates with like any story. I've also learned that something I'm a big advocate now, I didn't understand this before. If I was invited to sit at the table, I have a right to speak at the table.
Hell yeah.
I think that that still needs some work. And I didn't maybe understand that, but I understand that now. So not only was I invited to be here, I also now I have a right to speak. And I've been honored to do it, but I also have learned that we sometimes need to lend a handout. So let's say there's somebody at the table that isn't speaking. I'm the first one to say, like, hey, it's your turn to talk. Like, what do you have
What
to
do you
say?
think? Yeah.
Here? Like, and inviting people into that space. And let me tell you, just it doesn't matter who you are. I'm just saying if you're there, you were meant to be here. So let's talk. And it doesn't matter if you're a woman or not. But yeah, I think women still tend to still feel like they don't have a seat at the table. And I have been there where I thought, like, wow, I'm kind of outnumbered. And I've walked into rooms. I'll never forget. I'll tell you a really quick story. I know we like to talk a lot. I was at a franchisee only session at a Dunkin meeting and I was late. Okay. And like, I was like, okay, because you weren't allowed, like, in the previous days, if you're not a franchisee, you can't come to these meetings. Okay. Because that's
I
just how
see.
it is.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, you would just be able to go to the basic ones. And I was running late and I walked in, like, literally, like, deer in headlights, because I was literally like 5 minutes late. And there wasn't a seat there wasn't even a chair. Okay. So I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I'm late. And I closed the door because I was like, never mind. I don't need to go to this. Like, that's fine. I'm late. Like, I'm leaving. And another woman that was a leader got up, ran out and said, get back here. And I said, no, I'm late. Don't worry. I don't want to make a big scene. Like, I'm not supposed to, it's okay. It was my fault. And she says, no, went and got a chair and made her sit next to me. And, and in the moment, I kind of was a little bit embarrassed in a sense because I felt like everyone
Yeah.
was, what is going on here? And I thought,
Right.
like, this, like, why are you doing this? And she turned and looked at me and said, no, you're supposed to be here. It's okay if you're late. And I went and I got you a seat.
That's awesome.
I'll never ever forget that. And last year or no, it was this year, sorry, 2025 for the Women's Food Service Forum for Dunkin, she was presented for something. And in front of her peers and her bosses, because she's on the corporate side, I made sure I told that story. So I was like, listen, I gotta tell you, she deserves this award and she's one of the reasons why I am who I am. So you have to take some of these experiences and you have to tell the story and you have to remember them and you have to maybe do them yourselves when you can. So I can say, hey, I've been there before and we're going to get a seat at this table or whatever it is. I don't know. But yeah, no,
And you got to pay it forward too, right? You got
always
to
pay it
pay it
forward.
forward. So
Yeah.
what she did for you, you got to do it for someone else.
It's weird how much confidence you can gain fast if you're willing to realize that you have it. I believe it or not, talking to me, I wasn't this confident when I started. And there's days where I am not very confident at all. But you know what you have to do is you have to teach yourself, like, someone else, who knows who that was, you have to learn sometimes to be uncomfortable
Absolutely.
when you just have to be uncomfortable. Like, I was asked to speak at the IFA for the women's IFA this year, and I've never done anything that big yet. And when I walked into the room, actually, I think it was when I was on the plane, I was like, why did I sign up for this? Like, now I'm really regretting this. It's happening. Like, I gotta do this test run tomorrow. And I thought, why did I say yes? Right. And I remember the whole time really wishing that I didn't. But let me tell you, when I left that day, I thought, I'm so glad I did. Right. Because I was so uncomfortable and I was so nervous. And there is that, I think, in that moment in all of us internally that were like, why are we doing this right now? Like, why did I sign up for that? And you would kind of want to run out the door. And I remember thinking, this will probably be a time I might look back and tell the other story. Like, I remember when I was so scared to talk in front of 600 plus people. I didn't even realize how scared I was until I was doing it. But when I left, I thought, wow, I'm so glad I did. You have to be a little uncomfortable or you're never going to grow. That's how I feel.
What's next for you guys?
Well,
What's next for you and what's next for Ohm?
I have a lot on my plate right now with the current brands that we have. Right now, we are building the number 4 Qdoba. That's Qdoba in Cleveland. That's going to be in North Olmsted, Ohio. We're building the Smoothie King in North Olmsted. That's under construction right now. I got 2 Dunkins under construction. I have the Auntie Anne's in Cinnabon under construction, a Smoothie King in over there under construction. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I forgot about the Jimmy John's. I have 4 under construction right now on the Jimmy John side. And the development piece is crazy. But I still have plans to open up more, but I can officially say those are under construction. So they're gonna open, that's exciting. But even in the Qdoba platform, gosh, I think I was looking at I could still potentially open up 5 more this year. Oh, that's insanity, right? Because those are big restaurants and there's a lot of growth
They are.
there. It's exciting because we entered into what we call an emerging market. So an emerging market is where there's no presence and that brand. And it's either it's going to do really well or you have to work really hard. And it's been pretty successful in the Cleveland market. So it's so excited to like do that because when we first entered it, I was like, I'm gonna have to give away so much chips and queso for free to all these people, and then we're gonna lines out the
Yeah.
door and all that fun stuff. So it makes that even more exciting to want to keep building. So I'm excited for that. I think what I've learned about me is I like a challenge and I like these emerging markets and I like to build brand and build that awareness. And I would never have known that if it wasn't for this Dunkin path that I actually like to do that. So it's not for the weak, but I like to do it. I like a good challenge.
I love
So,
it.
but yeah,
Mandy,
I
you
yeah.
are absolutely kick-ass. I think you are an amazing role model. You've have the battle scars to now be sitting where you are today.
I mean,
And
I literally
what
have
I
like coffee burn scars, I'm sure, from burning coffee on my hands. I'm sure they're there. Yes. Anyway, sorry.
that's how you know you've done it. So I feel like this episode would be a success if it touches at least one person and inspires them to get their start. And even if they're working within the store and working their way up as a manager, you know that working for you, you have a path to become the regional director of a
Yes.
market. You can go on and open up your own store. And that I think is a very powerful message to send to operators and to show them that it takes time to build your presence, to build your confidence and ultimately be
Well,
successful.
I think if one person were to listen, I think what we forgot to touch on is I don't need the whole, me or the business partners don't need the whole piece of the pie. And we give out that pie. So we have 3 people in our organization that work underneath me that are also franchise owners themselves because we gave them a piece of the franchise. And I find that that's very unheard of in this industry. I'm sure they're not going to be just the 3. I'm sure that number is going to continue to grow. When you have this grand idea and you find that that person's really invested in this brand and there has to have some open, conversation and some skill set or some, we're not just going to handing this out. There has to be some growth plan with that person. And when you finally get to that day and you're like, this is happening and you're going to, become a franchise owner, I can't even tell you the internal satisfaction and how excited you are for that other individual and then to see them grow and now you kind of had a little hand in helping change their life. It's so rewarding. And I think there's a lot of people that hear our story and they might know who my business partners are. And they're always, I've got asked a lot in the earlier days, like, oh, come over to my network and I'll give you this percent or I get that a lot. And I thought, no, because what we have is a little special and unique and it's a little unheard of, but it's also taught me that I think I am the person that I am because of the opportunity that they gave me and what they believed in because that's part of their idea of doing business and why would I now change? Why would I change that course and go work with someone else? But a lot of people maybe wouldn't do that, but if you want to grow and you want to be successful, you have to share some of that pie and you have to give people the bandwidth almost to grow and give them that trust and give them that loyalty and say, I know that you can do this and go do it. Right. And not put your hands like 100% in it or you can't grow to like these numbers. I mean, not that I think we're the biggest by all means, but I don't do what I do if I wouldn't let them do their job, if that makes sense, or trust them to do their job.
Does.
So to give them the opportunity to be franchisees themselves, I think it's unheard of. And I hope that people can understand that sometimes we don't need all of the money, right? Or all of the pie. We want to keep growing and you have to give back and you have to give other people opportunity. That's just part of doing business or being a smart
It
business
is.
person in the sense. And you have to pay them well, right? That's the other that's a whole other podcast episode that we can talk about. I mean,
Absolutely.
you have to pay people to do the job that they're deserved to get paid to do if you want to grow too. So we're hopefully we're doing the right thing.
I think the results speak for themselves.
I don't
Mandy,
know.
this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us. I guess any
All right.
last words?
Anytime.
You have so many phrases, you have so many amazing gold nuggets to share. Any last words that you have for the audience?
What should I share? The one that I always share, the one that everyone talks about. Never get bored with the basics. That's what I live by. There's no rule. I got no playbook. I have no new grand idea. I just do what you're supposed to do every single day, and I live by that. And we don't get bored. And I always say, never get bored with what we said: being appreciative, being nice, being food safe, being clean, having product in the store. Like, just don't get bored. You can't get bored. You can't ever get bored with the actual basics. That's just one of my mottos. It's big and bold, and
Never get bored with the basics.
everyone knows that. Everyone that works with me knows that's the goal. You can't get bored.
Yeah.
I never get
Mandy,
bored.
thank you so much.
Thank you.